Administrator of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Foreign Agricultural Service. I'm pleased to welcome you to the Texas Roundtable. I'm also pleased to be joined by colleagues of mine at Foreign Agricultural Service, representatives from the Texas State Department of Agriculture, and Texas farmers and ranchers. FAS is very excited to have over 80 agricultural officials representing the Western Hemisphere, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Oceania participating in this Texas Roundtable. I'd like to thank Yvette Wedderburn-Bomersheim and other FAS staff and the personnel at the Texas State Department of Agriculture who have organized this event. Beginning in 1986, the Foreign Agricultural Service has organized orientation tours in conjunction with our colleagues from state departments of agriculture to showcase the diversity and quality of U.S. agriculture throughout the country. I have had the opportunity to host participants prior to these events in 2018, before you went to Colorado and Nebraska, and in 2019 for the tour in Tennessee and Kentucky. I'm still hearing about some of the fun that was had during the Kentucky and Tennessee tour last year. I also have the great pleasure to host our holiday event that's open to you as well on the Witten patio. Over the years, attachés have shared how important these tours are to enhance their knowledge of U.S. state and regional agriculture and to strengthen working relationships with colleagues at the USDA and at the various embassies with which you get to interact. FAS had to postpone the 2020 Foreign Agricultural Attaché Tour because of COVID-19, which has challenged our agency and many of you as well to explore new opportunities on how to engage with the embassy community and our trading partners. The pivot to the virtual event that we're having today is the next best thing, but it doesn't replace the opportunities we have for one-on-one communication in person. So we definitely look forward to that in the future. However, this format allows more participants the opportunity to engage with the Foreign Agriculture Service, the Texas Department of Agriculture, and the Texas producers that are joining us today, since tours are normally limited to 25 to 35 people. I'm excited to work with Texas Agricultural Commissioner Sid Miller and his team to host this inaugural virtual event in advance of the Attaché Tour to Texas, which has been rescheduled to spring 2021. Texas is a vibrant state with a large quantity of land and farms totaling over 247,500 operations spanning over 130 million acres with diverse natural resources, agribusinesses, and very strong farm heritages. Texas actually ranks fourth in agricultural exports with over $7.2 billion of agricultural products exported, led by corn, beef, and then a wide diversity of other products. We're honored to have Assistant Commissioner Dan Hunter, Gene Loney, and 5 producers representing various agricultural sectors and regions in Texas participate in this roundtable to discuss Texas agricultural production, trade, industry, innovation, partnerships, and opportunities. I want to encourage you to share input during the Q&A section regarding topics and site visits for the upcoming tour that you are interested in participating in. So with that, let's get the virtual event underway. I'd like to introduce Associate Administrator for the Foreign Agricultural Service, Clay Hamilton. Clay is a Senior Foreign Service Officer with FAS and came to us from his last tour as head of post in the embassy in Brazil. So with that, I turn it over to you, Clay. Thank you very much and enjoy the virtual event.
Thank you very much, Ken. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to y'all. I'm very glad that we have so many people participating from the various embassies and countries. And it's particularly a good day for me because I'm from Texas. I don't know if you can tell from some of the things in my office, but I grew up in Texas and I'm very proud of that. I actually grew up just down the road from one of the presenters, Shelley Heinrich, who you'll hear from later. I grew up on a cotton and wheat farm in West Texas outside of Lubbock. I got a degree in animal science from Texas A&M and a master's in ag economics from Texas Tech, and I was a county agent in East Texas. So I've had a chance to live in various parts of the state and enjoyed every bit of it. In the Foreign Service, I've had the privilege to serve in 6 different countries, and everywhere I go, it's always interesting. All you have to do is show an outline of the state, and everybody knows you're talking about Texas. It's one of the few places that symbol is so well known that you don't even have to say anything else and people know you're from Texas. So I'm very pleased to participate in this to give you a little bit of an insight into what I grew up with, what's going on in Texas. I'm very sad that we can't take you there personally. Hopefully we will get that put together for next spring. We tried to do this a couple of years ago and the hurricane put things off. So 3rd time's a charm. We'll get you there the next time. I'll be moderating this event. So I'll be, once they go through the presentations, I'll help moderate questions. So I want to encourage you to think of your questions. There's a chat box that you should have access to on your website. So as you have questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in the chat box. And I'll be keeping track of those. We'll answer the questions at the end just to make sure that we keep things moving. But I'll try to keep things sorted so that I can get them to the right person after the presentations. We're very happy to have Texas Department of Agriculture here to talk to you about Texas. Ken gave you a little bit of a highlight about the size and the breadth of agriculture in Texas. Texas Department of Agriculture will give you more detail and just talk about the diversity and the wonderful things that we have there. We have 5 different producers who represent different sectors. So I think it'll be a very informative presentation for you. Dan Hunter, who's the Assistant Commissioner for the Texas Department of Agriculture, will be leading us through this virtual tour of Texas. Dan has been involved in all facets of agriculture in Texas. He's an alumni of Texas Tech University and Tarleton State University. He taught at Tarleton State University. He worked with Southwestern Peanut Growers Association. He's taught applied environmental research, and he's been with Texas Department of Agriculture for quite a few years now. So he's very well versed in all aspects of Texas, and I think he'll do a great job in presenting the state to you. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dan, and thank you very much for your presentation. And Dan, it's off to you.
Thank you, Clay. Appreciate it very much. Howdy, folks. My name is Dan Hunter. I'm the Assistant Agriculture Commissioner for the state of Texas. We're so happy that you joined us here today. I want to thank Administrator Isley as well and the whole Foreign Ag Service staff for all the work that you do, and we appreciate and look forward to the opportunity not only to see you today, but also to see you in the future in person. With that being said, I'd like to go ahead and have a brief video played with an introduction from our current Agriculture Commissioner in the state of Texas, Sid Miller, who is actually a real world cowboy and a world champion. He's also the 12th Commissioner of Agriculture. Can we play the video?
Howdy, neighbors. Commissioner Sid Miller here with the Texas Department of Agriculture. On behalf of everyone here at the Texas Department of Agriculture, it's my pleasure to help kick off today's Texas Agriculture Roundtable. While I sure wish we could get together in person, I'm still excited to bring all of you to the Lone Star State virtually today for a little bit of that legendary Texas hospitality. As an 8th generation farmer and rancher myself, I'm proud to be part of an agriculture industry here in Texas, and I'm honored to serve as Agriculture Commissioner in Texas since 2015. During today's roundtable, you're going to learn a lot about the diversity of Texas agriculture, the innovation and entrepreneurship happening on our farms and ranches, and the great potential for increasing global partnerships in the Texas agriculture sector. While you may know a little bit about Texas agriculture, I can promise you that today's session will feature some surprises and some information and ideas that you're going to get excited about. I hope today's roundtable will also highlight ways we can work together to grow our connections and expand our international marketing efforts. So here at TDA, we're working hard not only to find new markets for Texas products, but also to welcome new international products and businesses here to the Lone Star State. So, thanks so much for being part of today's Agriculture Roundtable and for your service to the agriculture industry. So enjoy the session, learn a little more about why Texas agriculture matters, and until I can welcome you all here in person, thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Commissioner. We really appreciate the opportunity to have you here with us today and to welcome folks. I also want to say that as we move forward through today's program, you know, there's a couple of folks that have been greatly involved in this. You'll hear from some of them later, but I also want to recognize Dr. Gene Loney, who's our coordinator for international programs here at the Texas Department of Agriculture. A few things that we want to really accomplish today is to try and get some things out to you, to get you to take a look at Texas and look at what we do. Give you a virtual tour of the state and to hear from some real farmers and ranchers. I think you're going to really enjoy hearing not only what they do, but how they do it and where they do it. We're going to look at what we have here in the state of Texas, and we also want to look at one other thing. Not only how we can look at putting products into your countries, but how we can work together and partner with you and bring products here to the United States as well. For those of you who don't know, Texas has a long history, and it doesn't always involve just what we've done here in the United States or as part of the United States. Many of you may have seen this symbol. That's the 6 flags over Texas, which is a typical symbol here in Texas. It represents the sovereign countries that actually had control of Texas at one time or another in our history, including Spain, France, Mexico, the United States. And in fact, Texas is the only state in the United States that was its own country, the Republic of Texas. To give you an idea of the vastness of Texas, this is kind of an overlay of what you would be looking at and the number of countries that you could place inside of Texas. You know, that quote up there, the big wonderful thing, is part of a book that has recently been written about the history of Texas. That is actually a quote by Georgia O'Keeffe, the great artist. And she was looking at the wonder of Texas and couldn't believe that all of it's real. Well, I promise you folks, it's real. And we look forward to having you here and exploring and letting you see not only what we have here in Texas, but what we produce. I know some of this has been covered a little bit, but to give you an idea, Texas is the second largest state in the United States for landmass, behind Alaska. In addition to that, as I mentioned, if we were a sovereign nation still today, we would be one of the largest economic forces in the world. In fact, we'd be the 10th largest economic force in the world. Our diversity allows us to feed and fuel the world. As you can see, we're big producers, not only in agriculture, but in oil and gas and many other things, and have moved on to innovation and sustainability with things like wind power generation. And also, we also have some specialty crops, and we'll talk more about those later here in a little bit, but that include distilled spirits and wines as well. I want to give you a quick overview of the Texas Department of Agriculture, which was created back in 1907. And over the last 113 years, we've had a pretty simple mission, and that is to make Texas a leader, to fortify our economy, to work with our communities. We want people to be healthy in what they do and how they do it, and we want to protect our consumers at the same time. We also want to look at having common threads of agriculture in everyone's daily life. To give you a quick look at it, people think, well, you're the Department of Agriculture, so you just deal with agriculture issues. And we do every day on a daily basis. One thing that I often tell folks over and over again is that we're probably the only agency in the state of Texas that touches every Texan's life every day one way or another. Because in addition to working with our farmers and ranchers, and some that you're going to hear from here shortly, we also work not only to promote Texas, but we also make sure that we're working to help Texans as well. When you look at that, we administer all the food and nutrition programs here in the state of Texas. So we're responsible for feeding millions and millions of school children every day. We work with our elderly to make sure that they're taken care of. We oversee rural health care in the state of Texas. 163 rural hospitals come under our purview to make sure that our folks, while they're out there producing the fuel and food for the world in the United States, that they have healthy capabilities. We make sure that your food is safe through our inspection services. We make sure that what we're doing, whether it's in our organic programs or whether it's with regards to our structural applications out there, that you have inspection services that take care of things. And most importantly, we work with our producers and their councils and their boards and their commissions to get the word out about what a wonderful product they have in everything that they do. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Jean Lund to give you a little more update on some things going on here in Texas and to introduce some of our great producers. Jean?
Thank you very much, Dan. I think one of the things that you'll pick up on during this presentation is just this great sense of pride and passion for Texas and Texas agriculture. And we're really thrilled to have this chance to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. And to be honest, as the coordinator for international marketing, I pinch myself every day that my job is to get to brag about the producers that you're going to get to touch base with today. But there's a lot to talk about. Agriculture is huge in the state of Texas. You look at the numbers, it's almost astounding. We're third in the nation for total cash receipts for all agricultural commodities. And we'll talk a little bit about the diversity of that as well as we go through the presentation. But there are two things I really want to highlight. One is the numbers of farms and ranches. We're number one in the nation. You'll hear a little bit more about that. 93% of them are family owned and operated. And I think that's really important. This is a multi-generation industry. This is something where there's a history and a heritage that we're really quite proud of. These are also families that are caring for the bulk of the land mass in Texas. So 78% of Texas land mass is in agriculture in some way, shape, or form, whether that's cropland, pasture and range, or forestry. So about 52.6 million hectares that we're actually caring for and nurturing. When you look at our producers, there's also a really interesting story. We're number one in the nation for the number of female producers. We have a vast majority of families that sustain their living through agriculture. We also see growth in new and beginning farmers. We have growth in young farmers, and we have a lot of initiatives to bring in underrepresented farmers and veteran farmers. So we're seeing diversity not only in what we produce, but in who's stepping up to go do the work to produce it. At this time, we're really happy to, I think, step up to the unique challenge of how do we bring Texas to you during a time of no one traveling. And part of the way that we're trying to do that is through this video. We want to make sure that you get as much of a sense of Texas agriculture as possible during your time with us. So this hopefully is your teaser for what you might expect if you get to come with us on the tour next year. So would you go ahead and please play the video?
Texas. The word conjures iconic images of a place filled with an incredible history and an even brighter future. Whether we're producing commodities for the global market or developing and marketing consumer-ready foods and beverages, Texas has something going and growing all year long. Texas ranks first in the nation for the number of farms and ranches, and 93% of them are family-owned and operated. We also hold first in the nation for our infrastructure and wind energy. We are also one of the top 5 producers of more than 20 major commodities and rank in the top 10 for more than 40. Our weather, geography, infrastructure, and entrepreneurial spirit make Texas a true agricultural powerhouse. We're proud to be known as the top state of cattle and beef in the United States, but that's not the only place where Texas is a leader. We rank first in cotton production, second in sorghum production, and are a leader in hay, wheat, and corn. We lead the country in the production of mohair, are second in the nation for peanuts, pumpkins, and carrots, and are a top producer of rice, pecans, sugarcane, wool, and honey. We're also a leader in dairy, poultry, and eggs. Our abundant lakes, rivers, and ponds mean catfish is always on the menu. There is nothing sweeter than our famous Texas grapefruit, except maybe our oranges. Heck, even the onions are sweet in Texas, where we bred and developed the 1015 onion. If you look off to the coast, we love to brag about our Gulf shrimp and the waterfront communities that this sector supports. Dig a little deeper, and you'll find out we produce over 600 specialty crops, and we're a top grower of more than 60 of them. And we're #1 in the United States for watermelon production. The Texas agricultural industry is also growing into new and emerging sectors. The state is home to a burgeoning olive and olive oil sector, finding another way to imbue the taste of Texas in meals and dishes around the world. And the commercial hemp sector continues to grow in terms of acreage and opportunities for producers to develop and market their products. Texas is 4th in the nation in agricultural exports, ranking 2nd in total animal products exported and 5th in total plant products. And this doesn't even touch our beverages, spirits, or floriculture and horticulture sectors. Being in agriculture in Texas isn't just about producing big numbers, though. There is also a strong connection to sustainability. Given the geography of Texas, in some ways, our sustainability story is one that is inspired and driven by nature itself. This is particularly true on the cattle side, where these incredible recyclers can turn range and pasture land, not useful or for other types of production agriculture, into a natural source of essential nutrients and minerals. We also work across the sectors of agriculture, including our pasture and rangeland, to support healthy habitats for wildlife, pollinators, fish, and a wide variety of native plant, animal, and insect species. Agricultural technology is helping us produce safe, abundant products in ways that are more economically and environmentally sustainable, and help our farm and ranch families and communities prosper. One way that we can connect the consumers with the families and businesses who grow and produce products here in the Lone Star State is through our Go Texan program. The Go Texan marketing program gives participating partners the ability to benefit from expanded outreach and networking, while also gaining important visibility with their consumers by placing the iconic Go Texan mark on their products or in their window. From our foods to our forests, our agricultural crops to consumer packaged goods, and of course our robust beer, wine, and spirits sector, there is something for everyone in the Go Texan family. With a variety of market types and sizes across the state, connectivity to an incredibly diverse agriculture industry, a highly skilled workforce, and the infrastructure and logistics support to get products around the world rapidly, you'll find Texas to be a welcoming home to domestic and global organizations of all shapes and sizes. Come visit the Lone Star State and find out how Texas can be a part of your food, agribusiness, and global trade strategies.
So when you think about agriculture in Texas and what you just saw, another way to try to bring that to life is giving you a feel for the geography of Texas itself. It's incredibly diverse. If you were to split it out, there's actually 8 pretty distinct different sectors. So we have the hill country, which is home to a lot of our wineries and our pecan growing. We've got Big Bend, which is out to the west, and it's got cotton and pecans. Up in the north in the Panhandle, we've got cotton and cattle. You get to the coastal area, we've got all kinds of seafood, again, cotton and cattle, the piney woods. People don't think of forests in Texas, but they're certainly here. And then you get to the south in the Rio Grande Valley, and you've got this wonderful subtropical climate where we're producing citrus as well. To put it a little bit of a different way, if you were to go from the top of the Panhandle to the bottom of the Rio Grande Valley, it's about the same length of driving as if you were to go from Philadelphia on the East Coast to Disney World. It's a pretty big state. It's also incredibly diverse in terms of our geography and our climate, and that allows us to produce a wealth of different things. And I think there's a way to sum that up in a chart form as well. This is what we're a leader in terms of production in. So you can take a look at how diverse that is. I think a lot of folks know us for cattle, but there's a lot more that's happening when you start to really dig into what's going on in agriculture in Texas. We talked a little bit about our rankings and that snapshot. Again, all of that geography and climate leads to how we can be this diverse. I think it also is a huge nod, though, to our producers, and not only their consistency and their innovation, but also their sustainability to keep this going and growing. When you take a look at what we're known for, I think there are some things that come immediately to mind, and certainly animal agriculture is big in Texas. A lot of folks will not realize that we're one of the top 5 dairy states, and we're 6th in poultry and eggs. We're really big in equine, #1 in the nation, in sheep and goats. And I do think a lot of you probably know us for beef and cattle. We've got pasture and rangeland management that goes with that. When you think of our cattle and what happens here, whether that is managing the animals or the genetics or going all the way through to the final product of beef, it starts in the soil, though. You think about the ecology and the soil and the habitat, what we're doing to nurture that rangeland and that pasture, as well as the genetics and exporting. You know, certainly that's something that we'll look to across the world in terms of products that Texas can take abroad in animals and genetics as well. And our first guest speaker actually sums up a lot of that in his operation. And not only is he part of a family cattle operation, he's doing a lot of development on the genetic side. I think you might hear a little bit about his special guest who's behind him when you get to see him. But this is an operation that's really known as a genetics foundational operation for the Brahman breed, but also doing really innovative stuff in terms of mob grazing and agroecology and soil health. So we're really excited at this point. I'm going to turn it over to John Locke from J.D. Hudgens, and John's going to tell you a little bit about their operation.
Thank you, Gene. It's really an honor to be here. I appreciate you including me in this program, and I appreciate all of you people logging in and listening. Hopefully I can share something interesting with you today. Our family has a very long and storied history here in the state of Texas, a very proud history. And I am a 6th generation member of J.D. Hudgens Incorporated Ranch. And our ancestors actually came to the United States and settled at where present day Virginia is. They were Virginians to begin with. My great-great-great-grandfather Joel migrated to Texas from Mississippi in 1839. So we have a pretty long history in this very specific area of the state. One of the things that our family found out real early is that this is a tough place to make a living in agriculture. We're very hot, we're very humid, we're a subtropical environment. We've got a lot of disease, a lot of insect pressure. Now, they were agribusinessmen, Joel and his son JD. They were into farming, ranching, they had a general store, they did a lot of business in this part of the state. But they realized that if they were going to be successful in the cattle business, they had to have cattle that could perform in this environment. And they realized that Boss Indica's cattle could potentially fill that bill. Anytime they saw Indian cattle or cattle of Indian descent, they realized they were a little bit different and a little bit special. They can actually sweat. They're very resistant to insects and disease. And so they set out collecting and gathering up as many Indian cattle as they could. In the early days, I think it was right at the turn of the century, they started to breed and to collect these Indian cattle. And they invested a tremendous amount of money. In the early 1920s, they bought a herd of cattle, 120 head. And for the same money, they probably could have bought 2,000 commercial cows that weren't Indian cattle. So they set to work immediately on improving these cattle. Our family was integral in creating the American Brahman and starting the American Brahman Breeders Association. We don't get credit for it, but the American Brahman was actually the first beef breed created in the United States, and it has been used to develop every other breed of beef cattle that was developed in the United States. The partnership, the official J.D. Hudgens partnership, was started in 1908, and the ranch was incorporated in 1963. Today, J.D. Hudgens Inc. has 8 different divisions, and there are about 18 family members that are active in the management of the ranch and are here on the ranch day in and day out. We have approximately 1,800 Brahman breeding females on the ranch, and they are grazing on about 10,000 acres of grasslands. We sell cattle privately from the ranch, approximately 200 females a year and about 300 bulls, and all of those would be sold private treating. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the reason for us helping to create the American Brahman and going into the Brahman business is because of this harsh environment. And as luck would have it, our environment actually is similar to many of the grassland environments around the world. If you look at global beef production, the equator and obviously more sunlight and more grasslands tend to be the areas where you see beef cattle being raised. Therefore, about 2/3 of all beef cattle in the world have some level of Boston-Icus breeding. Gene mentioned my buddy back here on the wall. If you look behind me, that's a bull named Manso. And in the Brahman breed and in the cattle industry in general, Manso is kind of a household name. By a very fortunate set of circumstances, we acquired Manso. We traded 5 bulls for him. He came to the ranch in 1933, which coincidentally was the very first year that we exported cattle. We have sent cattle to 38 states in the United States and 43 foreign countries. Our markets are Central and South America, Africa. We've done a lot of business in Africa in the past, Asia. Thailand is a big market for us right now. And since we have that global market, our family has been very active throughout the years, traveling and helping to develop these markets and helping to help producers in those countries develop their own lines of Brahman cattle. It's been said that about 90% of all Brahman cattle go back to good old Manso that's on the wall behind me. He lived to be 17 years old, and he was probably one of the most prolific animals in the beef industry, period. Brahman cattle, most years, are going to be your most exported cattle out of the state of Texas. Since we have different technology that we employ now, we try to be innovators. We use embryo transfer and vitro fertilization. We've also developed a huge market for semen and embryos to go overseas, so we don't just sell live cattle. Our family members are also very active in traveling and judging shows and participating in events in foreign countries as well. It's been said many times about how diverse the state of Texas is, and J.D. Hudgens is no exception. We are also a diverse operation in our management. Since there's 8 different divisions and there are 18 full-time members, we all have our different management style, and I'll touch on that briefly. And as Gene said, I have been mob grazing Brahman cattle for about the last 5 years, and I've been involved in the soil health movement and the regenerative movement. And that's just one of the ways that we see that we can innovate and continue to improve our operations so that we can meet the challenges that are facing us in the future. I think it would be an understatement to say that our family's been blessed. I am currently raising the 7th generation. I've got 3 daughters, and I'm raising them here on the ranch. We've been blessed throughout the years. We've been blessed to be Texans. We've been blessed to be in the cattle business and involved with cattle people. We are proud of our heritage, and we are very proud of the contribution that our family has made to global beef production. So with that, I'll close, and I very much look forward to visiting and answering any questions that I can in the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sean. I really appreciate what you do and your time to make this work today. We're so glad to have you with us. We'll transition a little bit to the fiber piece. I think this is another area where you may have a little bit of awareness of the role that Texas plays, but it might surprise you how big this is in our agriculture industry. So whether you're talking mohair, which we're #1 in the nation, wool, or cotton, we have these wonderful natural fibers that we're producing here in the state that really can go out around the world as part of value-added products. And whether they're going out as a raw commodity and being processed and brought back, or we're finding ways to add value here at home, there's a huge potential, and we're really excited about what's happening in this area. We've seen some new research and development facilities break ground here in Texas. We're also doing a lot of industry engagement and outreach, as well as consumer awareness. And our next speaker actually combines all of that together. She's part of a family farm that produces cotton, not only cotton, but cotton is a big part of what they do. She's also an industry leader in the cotton sector, and a very, very gracious global host family. I know that she and her husband and their family have hosted a number of young people and farmers from around the world that want to get a better sense of what they do. I'm also very excited to share that her family is now part of our agripreneur community. So they've actually picked up a historic venue that they're managing and using it as a way to not only engage folks in the local community, but sneak in some learning about agriculture. So it's a great pleasure to introduce to you Shelly Heinrich from Heinrich Brothers Farm and Kittlewood.
Thank you, Jean, and bless everybody that is sitting through these Zoom meetings. I know that they're hard, and we would much rather have you here on the farm with us today. It's a beautiful day outside. We're supposed to be in the high 80s, and that is just a glorious day, especially looking into September. As Jean talked, I am part of Heinrich Brothers Farms. My husband is fourth generation, and he and his brother Eric have started this great, or continued on with this great farming operation. Their great-grandfather came here from the Houston port area back in the 1910 and settled up in the Slayton, Texas Panhandle area to look for a place where they could grow their families. The railroad was selling land for $6 an acre, and they took the opportunity to bring 8 children up here, 4 of which were boys, and try to expand their farming operations. So from that on to my father-in-law, who kept the family business going, and then he himself had 4 sons, and 3 of those 4 are continuing to farm. Like Jean said, we are up in the Lubbock area. We farm in 2 counties, Lubbock and Lynn County area, and combined acreage, we have a little over 7,000 acres. Our son is involved in it, as well as our nephews are involved. So altogether, we have 11 family members that are involved in our farm. We grow cotton, sorghum, wheat, and this is our first year of trying out to see how corn works. We are one of those families that take a lot of pride in soil health and land management. Some of the farms that we've had them since that early 1910 first opportunity to come out here to the Texas Panhandle. So that regeneration of soil, and it provides for our family, so we want to make sure that we take really good care of it. With that, we have some interesting things about what we do out here on the farm, and I wanted to share those with you a little bit. So I'm sure you guys have heard how arid and dry and diverse Texas is, and yet again, how it can be really wet. Well, in the area that we live in just this year, our rainfall has been, total rainfall for the year, 2.8 inches to 12.7 inches across about a 40 mile spread. So very, very difficult growing conditions when you're trying to grow row crops out here. So with that, we take a lot of pride in putting in some underground or drip irrigation. We have about 1,700 acres of drip irrigation, and that is irrigation that goes underneath the soil to help reduce the evaporation on top of the soil and to help conserve that water and keep it there for the plant. We have about 1,800 acres of pivots. And when you look at that across it, we were adding up the other night, we have about 350 pivot tires to maintain through the year. Just one of those little fun facts out there. And then the rest of our operation is dry land. So we depend totally on rainfall on what we can do as far as a yield on that. When you look across the different areas that we have out here and what we do, we have a partnership with USDA on their sorghum research, and we've done that now for 8 years. Because of the rotation in soil health, we want to make sure that our soils stay rejuvenated, and so that crop rotation is important to us. But we can't keep that going without having new genetics out there. So we have a partnership with USDA and the sorghum group to help go out and build those sorghum genetics out actually on the farm and take them to commercial fields. We also partner with USDA and 2 private companies on cotton genetics research. We designate about 40 acres to each of those entities in which they go out and do their cotton genetics research. We get the opportunity to see that research on the farm and take and give input to what they're doing and have that applied directly to the conditions that we are living in out here. From that, we've had 12 commercial lines of cotton come from the farm and 4 sorghum varieties. We've got some wheat. Everything that we plant out here, irrigated or dry land, it has a wheat cover crop on it to try to protect that soil during our winters. They're not very harsh winters, but we want to be able to conserve that soil and to maintain as much of the moisture as we possibly can in the springtime. Another fun fact that we have 12 employees, and of those, like I said, my husband, Bert, his brother are included in those, but we also have our sons, and we use a lot of our tech students to go out here and work part-time for us, and they continue on with their college education. Of those tech students, we have got 4 of them that have started their own farming operations, and when you add those 4 together, they have accumulated over 30,000 acres in the past 5 years of their own farming operations. So we like to keep the opportunity to educate and to build for the future of farming out here, and keep things rolling for the next generation. Of the current employees that we have 12. Of those 12, 5 are full-time, and 3 of them are over 35 years of age. 4 of them are 3 of them are also over 40 years of age. 3 of them are also over 50 years of age. So we have a very young group of employees out here. We have men and women out here helping us, and we're very proud of that. We will produce about 8,000 bales of cotton this year. We've got about 46,000 bushels of sorghum and about 100,000 bushels of corn. So just to give you a little bit of idea how vast and the different commodities that we had. Jean alluded to a little bit about our Kittiloo gin, and we took on a gin that had been vacant since 1974. It was built in the 1920s as a kit gin on the railroad, and it was used as a junkyard. We purchased it for pumpkin storage, and I can go into a long story about that, but I won't do that for you. But as we began to clean the property up, we realized that it had more stories to tell. And because we are so passionate about educating others on the ag industry, we thought that we needed to do more with it, and how could we bring in agriculture into entertaining people as well. So the first thought was that we would do markets on the side and have them on the weekend. And as we continued on the cleaning process, a family member came to us, our family friend came to us and said, hey, what about letting our kids get married there? So we kind of perked our ears a little bit more. Long story short, we operate this gin and seed barn. It is about a 10,000 square foot facility for weddings. We have maintained the inside of the gin to as much of its authenticity as we possibly could. And we're 7 miles outside of Lubbock, so you've got the Lubbock community that can drive out easily to it and see what it's like. In all, we were adding up the numbers again, and so far we have had over 80 events and have brought the urban people to agriculture out at the gin, about 24,000 people. If we finish up the end of the year, like I think that we will, by the end of the year, we should have introduced 28,000 people to the cotton gin, to cotton, just bringing them out, sharing with them our family stories and what we do in the ag industry as far as raising cotton, corn, and sorghum out there. If we're not teaching that next generation, we don't know who's going to. So we take a lot of passion in making sure that the story is told and it's told correctly. Jean also talked a little bit about how we entertain and bring on other ag tours that come out. We bring them out to the farm, let them walk through the fields, host them here at the house. We want to teach everyone about agriculture, about raising cotton, about what we do as part of the family in producing the fiber and food that goes to their plate. So with that, Jean, I'll turn it over back to you, and I look forward to any questions that you may have, and happy to answer them. And again, thank you all for being here, and hope that we get to see you in a live version.
Thank you so much, Shelley. We really appreciate it, and appreciate you helping bring what you're up to life for everybody. One of the things that's really exciting about Texas is we're also home to a native product. And I'm going to make sure to give you the one, it's not the most important thing I'm going to share with you today, but it's pretty important. Here in Texas, it's pronounced pecan. It will vary from state to state, but let me tell you, it's pecan in Texas. So this is actually a native, the Algonquins would have called it a pecan. And it was a nut requiring a stone to crack. And that is still incredibly true today. But it traces its history back to the 16th century. And it's the only tree nut native in North America. In Texas, we grow hundreds of varieties, and there are even more uses. So you may think of the pecan pie, but I can assure you it is a whole lot more than that. And our next presenter actually has a wonderful story to tell, not only being part of a family-owned pecan grove and taking care of that native tree and that native nut and looking at how to nurture it in their climate, but also how do you continue to take that and add value to it. So this is an operation where they're taking their product and they are taking the pieces of the pecans that have been shelled and turning it into pecan oil that you can cook with. They're making their own granola with a partner. They're looking at how to market it. They have a retail store. They're a Go Texan member. So they're also branding this product as being produced locally. And they're part of the Southern United States Trade Association, or SUSTA. So looking at how then they can also take this product around the world. So it's really exciting what's happening and what they're doing to not only nurture and grow a crop, but then take it that full spectrum throughout the food chain. So I'm very excited to introduce Tammy Sorrells to talk a little bit more about what she's up to.
Thank you, Jean. Yes, I am Tammy Sorrells with Sorrells Farms in Comanche, Texas. We're right in Central Texas. My husband is the second generation of this farm. His father, Kinley, and his mother, Delinda, started it. And we have 3 boys that hopefully one of them, or maybe all 3 of them, will want to be a part someday. Here in Comanche, our farm is very diversified. We grow pecans as our main crop, but we also grow watermelons and cantaloupes and tomatoes during the summer months. Our farm is in harvest mode of one crop or the other for around 10 months out of the year. So that's pretty unheard of and something we pride ourselves in. Raising a native pecan here in Texas, they're sprinkled along the riversides and the creeks all along Texas. They are a very hardy nut. Raising a native pecan can have its challenges because you're depending on rainfall. And as Shelley talked about, that can vary. a lot. Our native crop here in Texas looks to be very good this year. Usually they're more drought resistant, but they do need rainfall. The majority of our orchards are improved pecans, and so that varies along several different varieties. The main variety that we shell to get shelled meats is Pawnee and Wichita. The Wichita is the majority of our orchard. As we look across the acres that we take care of, 1,200 acres of pecan trees and orchard land, we pride ourselves in that. In Texas, you'll find that 150 of the 254 counties grow pecans. So pecans are very dominant in Texas. On an average year, Texas produces 60 million pounds of pecans. We like to say it's the best pecans. But as we take care of those pecans, we learn that pecans need three things to grow and to mature. They need water, they need food, and they need sunlight. On an average year, a pecan needs 12 inches. We're not going to get 12 inches of rainfall here in Texas. So we have to supplement that. It also needs food, nitrogen, and zinc. We do several applications of that through the growing season. And then it also needs sunlight. It's very important in your orchard that you have enough sunlight getting to the trees. So the old wise tale is that June and July, 12 o'clock noon, if you can't see your orchard for 50% of it, then you better get busy hedging. So that's something we would want to plan for in January and February when harvest is over, that we are hedging and making sure the orchard can get enough sunlight. So while these pecans are growing, we can't just sit back. We have to make sure that we are finding markets. For years, we sold just in-shell pecans. We exported a lot of pecans to China. We sold a lot here domestically. But in 2005, we kind of branched out. We wanted to add a little value to that product. And so we started shelling pecans. And as we shelled them, we grabbed our first grocery store chain. We bagged everything by hand. And we were very proud that we had that one chain. Then we opened a retail location in 2005 also. We launched an online storefront. And then we also started a gift brochure mailing business. And so all those things pieced together have added up over the years. And so our first retail location was around 800 square feet. Today, we are in a 5,000 square foot facility for a retail location. Our main business is still pecans in that retail location, but we also have gift items and other things. So as we started shelling, there was one thing that kind of bounced back at us. Pawnee tend to shell out more halves, but our consumers tend to buy more halves and not so many pieces. But we have this little niche of pieces, and like Jean talked about, we had to find a home for them. I mean, we couldn't just not do anything with them. And so we worked over the fall last year and through the summer. COVID was great for that research, putting together a granola, and it's fixing to go live in the markets, and we're super, super excited about that. And we also have taken the pecan pieces and been able to press them and create a pecan oil. It's going to be in our brochure this year. It's going to be online. We'll offer it here in the retail store also. Today, we service 4 large grocery store chains with fresh Texas pecans, and we pride ourselves with what we put in that bag. And so we want to bring only the best to the market. We want to make sure that people enjoy that pecan. She talked about that we are a Go Texan member. Go Texan, in 2005, we applied for Go Tech funding, and they were very pivotal in us being able to go out in those markets because they provided a grant funding that we were able to get our signage paid for. We were able to get a brochure started. We were able to get photography done. We were able to get bags. All those things would have not been possible if we hadn't had that Go Texan program. So they're very near and dear to our heart. We appreciate the TDA. We appreciate the USDA. And we are also members of the SESTA program. We have not traveled with SESTA, but they've been very pivotal in helping us find contacts overseas that we wouldn't be able to do on our own. Also, I serve on the Texas Pecan Board. I am the secretary of it. It is a leader, I think, in marketing pecans. And so the Texas Pecan Board collects half a cent for every pound of pecans, in-shell pecans that is sold in Texas. And we use that money to educate our farmers. We use that to help our farmers market pecans. Say they don't have a marketing department that can jump out there and do that. That's what our job as a Texas Pecan Board is, to promote Texas pecans and find homes. In October, be here tomorrow, Texas Pecan Month comes around. It's also going to be Texas Wine Month. We've done a huge pairing for that, and we're super excited about all the things that Texas Agricultural has been able to promote through the Go Texan program. I appreciate you today for watching. Thank you for coming. Thank you for everybody that put this together. And I look forward to your questions at the end. And if you get to come to Texas, come see us on the farm.
Thank you so much, Tammy. We really appreciate you being part of this and your leadership in the industry. It's something that you'll hear about through all of our producers that are with us today, is that leadership component. They're all also leaders in their community and leaders in the industry. And I think that's because you really can't decouple that throughout agriculture. It's really a microcosm of society and such a rich embedded part of our communities. Texas also has some really sweet surprises, and I'm excited to talk to you about that because people forget we have this wonderful subtropical garden in our state. You saw the 1015 onion in the video, and that's a little bit fascinating because you don't think of onions as being sweet. But we were able to use technology, and one of the universities here actually developed a sweeter onion that doesn't make you cry as much. So it's really fantastic to use, and it's got a variety of uses with it. The 1015 name always makes me chuckle because I don't think it was a marketer that picked that one. It's named the 1015 onion because you plant it on October 15th. So it's something interesting to keep in mind, that while we're talking to you about some of these products that date back to the 16th century and the 1800s, there are also a variety of products in Texas that are almost brand new, where we continue to innovate and use technology to add value and think about consumer trends and sustainability to really improve what we're doing. Texas is home to a lot of oranges. Folks don't really think of us for that. When you think about orange juice, we're probably not the first state you think of, but I will tell you that state probably got some of their oranges from us. So it's something that, again, we're really proud of. And we are very well known for our red grapefruit. The grapefruit has a really interesting history. Dan talked about those 6 flags. So the grapefruit actually date back to the Spanish missionaries that were here in Texas, and they're part of that legacy that they left behind. The first production grove was done in 1893. And in the 1920s, almost 1930, there was this happy accident where somebody found a red grapefruit on a pink tree. And that really just sent the Texas grapefruit industry in a new direction. We're excited that our next speaker is with us. He's not only a producer himself, but he's also an industry leader, guiding efforts on production, pest and disease management, value added, and trade in the grapefruit sector. So our next sweet surprise for you is to hear from Dale Merton.
Thanks, Gene. Appreciate y'all having me here today. Gene talked a little bit about the grapefruit. Behind me, it's kind of hard to see, but that's the family tree of the grapefruit, so to speak, going from pomelo up to our red grapefruit today. One thing you probably noticed in all the Texans here speaking is we're pretty proud of being Texans, and we talk in how many generations we've all been here. Now, I can't outdo John Locke, but my family got here as quick as we could, and we're 5th generation Texans. So, John, I think you're going to win the day on that one. And a little geographical history about Texas. Shelly Heinrich was on a little 2 speakers before. If you drove from my house to Shelly's house, it would take you about 10 10 plus hours to get there. So that's just a size and scope of where we are. The Texas commercial citrus industry is located down here in the deep South Texas area, right on the Mexican border. We've got many groves that we can look across the Rio Grande River, and we're looking into Mexico, and that's a benefit to us being subtropical, like Gene mentioned. We do have freezes, and obviously we have hurricanes, but the freezes are few and far between, thankfully. I am a citrus grower. I've been a citrus grower my whole life. I am also the president of Texas Citrus Mutual, the grower organization that represents what makes up the citrus industry today. And that's approximately 600 growers farming about 30,000 acres of citrus here in the lower Rio Grande Valley. Gene mentioned oranges. 70% of our crop is actually the red grapefruit variety. The remaining 30% is in oranges, lemons, and limes to a degree. Texas is a fresh fruit industry. Unlike predominantly California, Florida mainly is juice. We're predominantly a fresh industry. 70% of our fruit is the grapefruit, like I mentioned. Our ratios average about 60% of our crop actually makes it to the fresh market, and the other 40% goes to juice. We have 4 packing sheds for the fresh market down here in the valley and 2 juice plants. One of the things that the Texas grapefruit is sought after for, other than its deep red color, is its Brix ratio. It's a very sweet grapefruit, runs typically about 12 on the Brix readings when most grapefruit struggle to be about 10. So that's one of the reasons it's a sought after grapefruit. I guess on average for the last 20 years, we've peaked at about 230,000 tons annually of grapefruit. That's the equivalent of about 12 million cartons of grapefruit a year that we produce. Dominantly, our market has always been, including Canada, the domestic market accounts for about 95% of our fruit. The other 5% remaining does go export, and we do look consistently to expand the export markets. And Texas Department of Agriculture, Foreign Ag Service has been very helpful in helping us open up other foreign markets so we can get that sweet fruit to you. These Zoom meetings are so awkward, and we'd love to have you folks get to tour the valley. Picture's worth 1,000 words, and these meetings don't really do it justice. But we do hope that one day you can come see us soon. We'd love to have you. Our season down here runs anywhere from October. We just started harvesting down here, and we'll run into May of next year. Our export markets are a little shorter than that. We'll run exports from October to about January. But anytime during that, we'd love to have y'all, and we hope to see you soon. And with that, Gene, I'll throw it back to you and look forward to questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dale. Really appreciate it. And appreciate your time in talking about our sweet surprises down in the valley. Advocating for agriculture is also really important. We have these incredible producers that you've learned about today, that you've heard from, that we hope you get to meet in person. But we also really need to reach out to the folks that aren't producers. How do we help communicate what we're doing? How do we talk about what's happening on our farms and ranches? And how do we really embrace the role of agriculture as a community partner? It's a challenge that's not unique to Texas. It's not unique to the United States. I think all of us in agriculture face this. How do we use technology and passion and communication to engage our non-ag eaters? And I'm not going to say consumers, because the reality is everyone is a consumer. But we have non-ag eaters. We have folks that aren't in the industry and are maybe still learning about what we do. Outreach and communication really is key. And we're excited to have our next speaker with us, because she really has taken her passion for telling the story and better connecting with community members and those non-ag eaters and helping them embrace agriculture. She's taken that and made it a lifetime commitment. You're going to hear from Michelle Martin in a moment. At this moment, I really need to say a special thank you to Michelle, because she and her video producer, Jason Garza, are who helped us put together that video you saw at the beginning. So an example of not only being passionate about telling that story, but not limiting it to one area or one region. really helping bring agriculture to life across Texas and around the world. So with that, I'm very happy to turn it over to Michelle Martin, who is the founder and editor of AgMag, and also the leading driver behind Farmer Who, which you'll hear a little bit more about. Michelle, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the great introduction, Jean. So like she said, I started the magazine called AgMag, and I started my magazine about 7 years ago. And I quit my job. I was working for a private school, and I quit my job with $200 in my wallet and decided, you know what? I'm just going to start an ag magazine because we don't have anything like that. And my husband farms, and he also works for a chemical company that sells fertilizer to farmers and ranchers. And I realized that there was a need for the consumer to know what agriculture is all about. I feel that in today's society, with all the social media and all the fake news, that the normal consumer is misinformed or miseducated. And so I decided to take that and run with it with my idea to go educate. And so, like I said, this magazine covers all aspects of agriculture. We have all your laws, bylaws, we have farming, we have ranching, we cover kid events like your 4-H, your FFA, and even people who are involved in agriculture. I'm from the same place. I guess I should have opened up with that Dale Merton's from. I was born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley, and we have a lot of vegetables down here as well. We have over 50 varieties of vegetables that are grown in our area. Some better than others due to our climate because it is hot, but we don't get a lot of rain either. However, this year, I think we got somewhere around 18 to 20 inches with the last hurricane that we had, which was not the best for us, but we'll take what we can get. Another thing besides the magazine that I decided to start after the magazine started to pretty much run itself was a TV show called Ag on Wheels. And I like to associate the show with Mike Rowe, Dirty Job. If you've ever seen that show, where he travels around and learns about different parts of agriculture is what I'm doing. So mine is all agricultural based. So we visit producers, we visit retailers, we visit the farmer, we visit the rancher, and I pretty much just go out there and educate again and just made it into a TV show. Shortly after that, I got an idea called Farmer Who. Now, Farmer Who is a project that was recently just launched in March, which was at the beginning of COVID. And Farmer Who is really created to close the gap between the consumer and the producer. Now, like I said, there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's very easy for people to get on the internet and type in GMO or to type in organic, and they'll be fed a list of all this information, but how do we know what is correct? So with the Farmer Who, it is a sticker, and it is a picture of me holding a QR code. And so on that QR code, all you would have to do is get your cell phone. You do not have to download an app. There's nothing special. You just put that camera to that QR code that I'm holding, and a 1-minute video pops up with me and the farmer that grew that exact piece of produce, dairy, poultry, whatever that you're holding. And so that is able for the consumer who knows nothing about agriculture, or even the consumer that does, to be able to see who grew their food, how they grew it, and where they grew it. And so with that it's just a 1-minute video, because I know people's attention span these days is very little. And so it's just that 1-minute video that can give the consumer perspective that the person growing their food is just like you and me. And they're not going to feed the country something that they're not going to feed their family. And so that was the whole idea between Farmer Who. I've now gone over into 6 states and done 6 different commodities. And we will continue to branch out. Like I said, we're going to end up hitting the beef industry, the poultry industry, the dairy. We're going to do it all. We've done watermelons and onions, amongst some other things. And so my goal is really just to educate. I see how hard the farmers and the ranchers work here. I use social media as my benefit too, because social media runs the world, let's be honest. And so it's a free avenue for me to take to just show the world how hard farmers and ranchers are. I think there's a lot of misconception that farming and ranching is so easy. All you have to do is throw some cows on the land, or all you have to do is plant a seed in the ground. And it's so much more than that. And it takes so many more hands than just one person. And so that's really my goal, is to educate not only the United States, but the world on just how hard and how important and valuable agriculture is. And I'm proud to be involved in agriculture. Like I said, we grow over 50 different varieties of vegetables in the Rio Grande Valley, and it's such a unique place. And Texas itself has so much to offer, and I'm proud to be a Texan. And that's pretty much me and what I do in a nutshell.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michelle. We really appreciate you and the time that you take to help engage consumers and community members, and are glad that you were able to be with us today. So you took a deeper dive with us into the production side of Texas agriculture. I'm going to turn it back over to Dan, and he's going to start to talk about where those products go and how we go worldwide.
Great. Thank you, Jean. Wasn't that fantastic to hear from those folks? They not only love what they do, but they produce a great product, and they love taking it to the marketplace, whether it's domestically or worldwide. And, you know, that's one of the things we try and do and look at here at the Texas Department of Agriculture, is taking our products worldwide. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've been on every continent except for Antarctica, moving and working with not only exporters, but importers as well, looking for products and places that we can put those items. We look for the investment back here into Texas. We encourage you to come here. We want to be a part of your production efforts if you need to be. Also, we want to find a way to help you promote our products around the world. So we work with lots of different people, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. I'm going to move through the next few slides relatively quickly so that we can get to an opportunity to answer some questions. I know there are lots of questions coming out. But if you look at this chart, it's easy to see that cotton is certainly a big export crop for us, and cattle and beef and those types of things. But there's a wide variety of products that we work with, whether it's Dale Burton wanting to and trying to put grapefruit into Asian markets, whether it's John Locke putting genetics into Asia and into Australia and different places like that, working in the European market, looking to how we can improve different product placement in places around the world, whether you're in Africa or South or Central America. As we do that, one of the things that I think is very important is partners and partnerships. And that's what we look at you about. You are our partners. We look at finding a way that's not only going to be beneficial for you and to put a product that you may need into your country, but also how can we help that? The other side of that is you want a product that when it gets to the shelves in your country, you sell it. And that little symbol down there at the bottom, that Go Texan, is one of the things that moves products around the world. We know that. We know that when people see that, they look at it and they go, that's Texas. It has a romance with it. It has a story behind it. It's like Michelle was saying, every piece of property, or almost every piece of property in the state of Texas, is privately owned. And you can get to know those producers through our activities. And we work with several different, not only universities, but we also work with other departments of agriculture. We work with many of our trade associations, from our cattle associations to pecans, beef, all these things, wheat, corn, sorghum, citrus, those things. Another one, you know, that's very important to us as we look at it, and it's been mentioned several different times, is the Southern U.S. Trade Association. We utilize and work with them in a great number of ways. Commissioner Miller is currently the president of the Southern U.S. Trade Association and has made it his goal to make sure that we're doing everything we can to not only put products in places around the world, but also to bring you in and educate you in every way possible. We also, at the Department of Agriculture, use several other partners, including the U.S. Department of Commerce. We work with USDA and Foreign Ag Service, Small Business Administration, and look at working through our bilateral agreements that's worked with and worked on by our Foreign Ag Service and the folks there that negotiate those trade agreements. I know some of you are interested in research and innovation. Well, as you kind of heard, Texas can be a hard place to grow things. Texas can be a hard place to raise things. So we spend a great deal of time on research and innovation, working with our university partners and how we do it. But we're also looking at innovating and looking at crops that maybe weren't traditional. You know, we talk about different things. Hemp is a new crop here in Texas, and we look forward to being involved not only just in the fiber side, but the oil side and the grain side and those types of things. Olive oil, you saw the picture. We have award-winning olive oil from around the world. Pecan oil, which was mentioned by Tammy. And also, one thing that Dale didn't mention is that we're utilizing our citrus oils to put into markets for fragrances and tastings. When we talk about wine and distilled spirits, we started with a few wineries and have burgeoned the program up into over 400 wineries, over 200 distilleries that produce everything from bourbons to gins to vodkas. Many of you have probably seen Tito's vodkas and those types of things. One of the things I want to say about wine is that when people talk about wine, you talk about the history of the state of Texas. The first vineyards in the United States were actually in Texas, brought over from our good friends from Spain when they came in and explored and actually planted the first vines in the United States of America. We thank you for that. We practice our renewable and sustainable energy. We look at how we can make sure that we continue to produce not only today, but tomorrow in the many, many years to come. A couple of the things, that we look at is technology. How do we innovate? How do we vertically integrate? Knowing that we're not going to produce any more land, but we need to produce more food. And so we work with partners out there that can do indoor grows, utilizing beneficials rather than chemicals, utilizing things that we will be able to use and save water and conserve water without hurting the soil, but working with those folks and innovating and going vertical with those types of programs is critically important as we continue to look at feeding the world and everything around it. Some of the things that I think are critically important, once again, is research. We've talked about that. We've talked about the research with regards to the people we work with, not only private entities, but our research entities and universities, from Texas A&M to the University of Texas to Texas Tech and many others in between. We're very proud of the opportunity we get to work with them. And hopefully you'll get a chance to see some of the work that they're doing and innovation that they're doing. As we've all mentioned, marketing and trade is key, not only from the standpoint of what we do and how we present our product, but we want to sell you a product that you can sell in your country. We also want to work with you as you bring products here into the United States. So a couple of things that I think is very important when you look at this is that Texas is a business-friendly environment. We want to make sure that we're creating a workplace that's not only good for people, but also has low taxes and wants to put people to work here in the state of Texas. Our business atmosphere is fantastic. Our workforce is tremendous. And right now, as you can see, we have over 40,000 companies with exported goods from Texas. We work with our global partner in McLean Global as far as our preferred exporter. We work at putting things into the marketplace. We also, as I mentioned, we look at partners not just for exporting, but when you think about it, we're the largest cattle producer in the United States, which means we're the largest leather producer in the United States. Many of you may or may not know that the next Louis Vuitton bag that you buy on the Champs-Élysées in Paris was produced right here in Texas. That's right. Louis Vuitton has also put up a facility here in Texas to begin processing the leather right here in Central Texas. So we look at ways to innovate, look at ways to help you make your businesses and your countries work not only today, but once again, tomorrow. As I mentioned, agribusiness and infrastructure, this is a two-way street for us. We look for you as partners. We look for you as people who can be able not only to have an investment here in the United States, but also have a way to feed and fuel your countryside. One of the reasons that we're popular and able to do this is our ability to export in the logistics that we have. As is shown here, we have multiple seaports that can be used, commercial airports of over 25. We actually have the largest U.S. network of freight and rail and public roads anywhere in the United States. We operate, as far as the Texas Department of Agriculture, 5 export facilities, 4 along the border, and including the Houston airport, where we ship live cattle and fly out animals such as the one that John Locke sells. And as I mentioned, we have a global partner in McLean Global. With that, I'm going to stop, and I know that Clay has been gathering up lots of questions out there from you. We wanted to take an opportunity to give you a chance to ask some of those questions, not only to us, but to all of our presenters. Most importantly, I want to remind you that we look forward to working with you. We look forward to bringing you here, and I know every one of our presenters look forward to meeting you in person. And if we can ever do anything, do not hesitate to contact us. You have the ability to do that through the Foreign Ag Service, or you can contact us directly. Thank you again for your time and being here. Clay, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. I hope everyone enjoyed that presentation. As well-versed in Texas law and agriculture as I am, I have to admit I learned several things from that as well. I've tried to capture some of the questions. I may not be able to get to all of them, but I'll do my best. Dan, Gene, I think the first question is for y'all. What portion of agriculture in Texas is non-genetically modified, which is non-biotech? Do you have some statistics on that?
I don't have exact statistics, but I can get those for you. One of the things I think that's very important is we realize that the marketplace out there, whether it's to the west of us or to the east of us or to the south of us, the want and need for GMO and organic products is growing. We actually run the Texas Organic Program here in the state of Texas. So we certify not only feed and fiber and vegetable operations, but we're also the ones who certify organic livestock operations. So we work greatly. It's a robust industry, one that's growing here, one that's meeting the marketplace. We have a huge organic dairy program here in the state of Texas. So we look forward to working with you and finding those products that are going to fit your needs in those countries.
Great. Thank you very much. One other question. We talked about a lot of very serious statistics. I want to ask one little question. What are some of the more unusual products that you produce in Texas?
Well, I think some of the ones that people don't know that necessarily don't know about, I mentioned before, hemp, of course, being one of those new ones, olive oil. A lot of people didn't realize some of the things that we do there. You know, we talk about the vegetables, and Shelley mentioned that, you know, we're one of the leading producers of organic char in the state of, in the United States. We produce a significant number of in the United States, as you well know, grocery stores love to sell what they call vine-ripened tomatoes, those tomatoes you see on the shelf that still have the vine on. Actually, most of those come from Texas. So we've got lots of different products that people probably don't realize that we have. But when you talk about our vegetables and our capabilities there, once again, from leafy greens all the way to our beans, to our squash, the melons are some of the most fantastic in the world, and some of the ones that people may not be familiar with in other countries. But I will go back to, once again, when Dale Merton talks about the sweetest fruit in the world, the ruby red grapefruit, that red grapefruit in South Texas is one of the best.
Thank you, Dan. I guess it's not everything. Everything's not just the standard, the typical cowboy and beef and beans. We have a lot of other things. And Shelley mentioned, she said, don't forget cottonseed oil. 50% of the cottonseed oil comes from Texas. So more power to Shelley. One other question, or just a comment. There's been some questions from some of the embassies about how they can work to find hosts for exchanges, or how they can exchange information. So maybe that's something that you can get us some more detail, and we can help spread the word, because there were several questions on that.
You betcha. And of course, as you well know, we love to host folks here, but we want to bring people in specifically targeting what they're looking for and working with them. We do that quite often with several of the different countries that want to come in, whether they're looking for beef genetics or whether they're looking at products like cottonseed oil, or if they're looking for fresh produce and those types of things. So we do that almost on a daily basis with not only the help of you guys at Foreign Ag Service, but with SUSTA and our other partners. And once again, they can contact us directly. Dr. Loney is willing and ready and able to assist in any way. And at the same time, we know that SUSTA is as well. But I know that you're going to provide our contact information for everyone, Clay, and we'll be happy to help them out any way possible.
Great. Thank you very much. The next question is for John Locke. John, you mentioned you're involved in soil health initiatives. Can you give us a little more detail on how that works? What are you doing? And what are you doing to make sure that your operation stays sustainable?
Thank you. Yes, we are concerned with soil health and actively working on soil health. Obviously, we do testing and monitoring. The main thing that we're doing is trying to improve our soil through grazing management. I've been mob grazing for several years now, with cell grazing before that. And we're just trying to use the livestock to regenerate the soil and put some life back in the soil. And on top of that, we try not to do any practices that might negatively affect the life in the soil.
Great, thank you. One of the other questions in this, I may ask the same question for several people, is how has the current COVID situation impacted your operations?
The current COVID situation had a pretty significant impact on us initially. Our prime bull selling season was when the lockdown hit. People weren't traveling. At the same time, the demand for beef went down due to a lack of processing, as well as having restaurants and schools closing and not having nearly the demand for beef. So when it hurts the commercial market here in the States, it hurts our prices as well, and people aren't as willing to spend money on that nice top genetic bull. And also we have such a huge amount of foreign partners and friends and clients that travel here. With them not being able to come inspect cattle, and we're still a handshake business, and we're a business where we do a lot of person-to-person stuff. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. There's in our foreign travel going to visit with them and go to shows and do marketing and promotion in other countries. That's pretty much non-existent right now. So that's a challenge that we're continuing to work to try to overcome.
Well, thank you. I think that's, some challenges that we're all facing, but, we wish you the best of luck with that. Shelley, I have a couple of questions for you, and just in full, to make sure everybody understands, my background is I grew up about 30 miles from where Shelley is. So I can remember driving past that gym that you talked about. Texas has interesting liquor laws, so I had to drive 50 miles to get to the nearest store that would sell beer, and I went right by Shelley's place. So, Shelley, I'm just curious, you've got a lot going on. I was wondering if you could give us a little background on how important innovation and technology is to your operation.
So it's vital to our operation. Each year, we cannot continue to exist without bringing on new technology or new innovation. It is what sustains our financial stability. If we were to continue to do what we did 15 years ago, or what previous generations did, we would not be a viable operation. So in today's world, in talking about COVID and the impacts on that, we continued on, and how we were able to continue was because of technology and innovation. We run precision ag. That has to happen at a certain time of the year on fertilizer applications. And to get that where it is exact, right where that seed needs it, where the plant can grow, that has to continue. And without that precision and without precision ag and the technology innovation behind that, our input costs would be double and sometimes triple of what they are today. So it keeps us financially stable to be able to take on new innovation and to continue on in a production year.
Right, thank you. One of the other questions was in reference to your starting to grow corn for the first time this year. How did you make that decision, and how do you decide, where, how much acreage to put into one crop or the other from year to year?
So the first field of corn went in because of, again, soil health issues. We just recently took over a farm that had some soil health issues, and we could not grow cotton on it, so we needed to go to another crop. It was suggested that we grow corn, and so we tried it. That was an early patch of corn. Then as the growing season continued, as I said before, climate conditions out here can be rather harsh, and so we had a pretty severe storm come through in which some cotton got hailed out on. It was still early enough that we could put corn in, but later than our first patch of corn. So it was a small block of 50 acres. And so we tried that. We knew that we had the opportunity to rotate some land and to help improve that soil and make a viable crop for our landowners. One thing that I didn't mention is that of the land that we farm, 80% of it is rented versus what we own. So we've got to make sure that our landowners are taken care of as well. So we opted to do corn. It was the first time that we did it, and you could definitely see a difference in yield between the early corn that we had versus the later corn that we had. And the later corn proved itself higher yields. And so next year when we do our crop planting, we'll look at timing on that.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and best of luck with your operations on the Ketalogen. That's a pretty cool operation.
Thank you.
The next question is for Tammy. She was the one who grows pecans, not pecans, but pecans. Tammy, I'm curious. You sell both domestically and internationally. What's the biggest difference in how you approach both of those markets?
Well, internationally, usually we have not had to reach out as much. So those we've sold to China mainly, and those have been they've contacted us. Now, as far as internationally, we had to go through more testing, more certification to get those pecans overseas, and you've got to plan around that Chinese New Year. But as far as domestically, it's easier for us to sell it domestically, but internationally, that's become a wide open door. And so we appreciate that. We haven't sold to China in about 3 years, but we are looking at other international markets that those doors seem to be opening more for pecans.
And as a personal question, I have to ask you, what's your favorite pecan recipe?
My favorite pecan recipe, I make a banana nut ice cream, and my children love it, and we put pecans in it. So that's my favorite.
I'll have to remember that. I grew up with pecan pie and ice cream, and that's hard to beat. And then you've got the Corsicana pecan industry there with their fruitcake. So hopefully we'll get people down there so they can try it firsthand.
Yes, we would love it.
All right, thank you very much. Dale, next questions are for you. How has the COVID situation affected your ability to market and ship your product?
Clay, when COVID hit down here last March, I guess, we had just wrapped up our season. And so we didn't really have too much of an issue because we had closed our season out. As we move into this next season, COVID has basically exploded down here in my region along the border. It's one of the highest populated areas in the state with COVID death rates and hospitalization rates. So it is a big concern. We're doing everything we can to follow, World Health Organization guidelines, CDC guidelines. The safety of our employees is the most important thing to us. And so we are doing everything we can. It's not like we can live in the bubble like the NBA is, but we are outdoors and we are spread apart somewhat. And so we do those kinds of things to protect ourselves. And we're just hoping that they develop a vaccine, find a cure, get rid of this thing as quickly as possible so we can all get back to some kind of normal.
Yeah, it's certainly a difficult time for everybody. And hopefully the health benefits of the fresh juice and the fresh fruit will provide a decent market for you moving forward so that you can keep these people employed. There were a couple of other questions. One is about the relationship between the grapefruit farms and the juice plants. How is that? Do people have their own juice plants or do they contract it? How does that work?
Right. So I'm a typical grower in South Texas, and there's 4 packing sheds left, and we'll choose one of the 4 to market what we call pick, pack, and peddle our crop. So they'd come in. I choose packing shed A. They come in and pick our crop, and they run it and grade it and size it and pack it, and the percentage that can go to the fresh market then goes to the fresh market, and I get paid based off of that, minus their charges. The percentage that goes to one of the 2 remaining juice plants here, then I'm typically paid on a per ton basis for that fruit. Dan mentioned the oils and some of those things. The juice plants own that, and I don't necessarily participate in the sale of the oils, the essence oils and things like that. But we do get paid a price per ton of fruit, basically.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Michelle, you're up next. Your Farmer Who concept was very interesting, and I'm curious if you could mention what do you think are the main pieces of information that ag producers should make sure that their customers know about?
I think that the main thing that the consumers need to know about is that farmers aren't going to feed the world something that they're not going to eat themselves. And so that's just been the major concept of Farmer Who. Now, the concept also behind it is if you go to a restaurant that, let's say, Guy Fieri has been to, he has that stamp of approval. You know that it's a good restaurant. Same concept with the Farmer Who. If you have 2 packages of blueberries next to one another, the Farmer Who, the one with the Farmer Who sticker, kind of emphasizes that that's a premium product. And so there are certain criteria that the farmer, the rancher, the producer has to go through. And we kind of just find out their needs as far as what do they want to do? Do they want to showcase their sustainability, or what is it that they are wanting to highlight? And we kind of work with that, and we highlight, you know, exactly what the farmer wants to show and what the farmer or the producer wants the world to know. But mainly, we just want the world to know that their food is safe and that farmers are there to help and to feed and to clothe. Same with the ranchers. Just everyone who's involved in agriculture is here to help the world, not make it a bad place like a lot of the misinformation that's out there says.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's one thing I've noticed in my travels around the world is the impact social media and misperceptions about food can really have an impact on what consumers buy. So thank you very much for your efforts. I think that, oh, go ahead. Oh,
sorry, I wanted to add something. And so something that I've also done to kind of alter that is, and I apologize for interrupting you, but I go to grocery stores, and on my social media, especially on Instagram, I'll go to grocery stores every other Friday, and I'll walk up to random consumers and I'll ask them, do you buy organic or non-organic? Or do you know what GMO stands for? And the answers are just out of this world. People are just so miseducated. One lady said she just buys organic because that's what she reads to buy. You know, one person said, oh, well, I buy GMOs because I've been told they're bad, but I don't even know what it stands for. And so those are kind of little things that I can do, offset Farmer Who or the magazine or TV show to kind of educate people. But as you were saying, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You make a very good point. And one thing I've noticed from traveling the world is that farmers are the same wherever. And I know in some cases, farmers products get, people have concerns because they're from big farms or from industrial farms. But one thing that I think these tours that we do for the attachés here in Washington is just to show that our farmers are just the same as their farmers. They all care about the same thing. You know, they all complain about the weather, the prices, and the government. And, you know, and they all want to produce a good crop, and they all want to take care of their families. So to me, that's one of the best aspects of this program. And so I appreciate your comments and everybody participating.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of other questions, and these I'm just going to kind of throw out to whoever might like to answer them. One is that I think this is a very apt question. It's what it has to do with the younger generation continuing in agriculture, because I know in a lot of areas the average age of the farmer is getting older and older. So how are y'all working to make sure that you're bringing in new farmers, the younger generation, into the ag community? So I'll open that up to anybody that wants to, if somebody wants to start speaking, the camera should turn to you.
So Clay, let me maybe take a first shot, and then I'll let them people talk about, what they're doing in their specific areas. But here at the Department of Agriculture, we actually have what we call young farmer grants. We're encouraging young farmers to come in and start farming new acreage. Shelley mentioned the Texas Tech students that they're working with. We really view that agriculture in Texas is one of those that has promise and has technology associated, the things that excite young people, that we have to make sure that they understand that this isn't just about seeds and animals, that this is about technology, innovation, marketing, and those types of things. So we push that, but we utilize grants here at the Department of Agriculture, and we work with the different associations across the state to make sure that they get in to an opportunity to meet with students, whether they're college or high school students, and help them understand how important not only food production is, but what an opportunity it is. It was mentioned, I believe, by Michelle, you know, we have a very robust, what is called 4-H and FFA programs, youth agriculture programs. In the state of Texas, we have the largest youth agriculture organizations anywhere in the United States. We have an FFA organization with almost 70,000 students and that are involved in that. So pushing that and helping folks understand are critically important.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to pitch in for that question?
I can follow up a little bit along those lines, Clay. One of the things that we do with our group, the tech students, we give them some skin in the game as part of the production, going from seed to harvest. We'll give those guys the opportunity to manage you know, a certain farm or acres along that farm, so that they are caretakers of that particular seed block or production, corn, cotton, sorghum, whatever. And they have to make sure that the fertilizer is taken care of, the water is taken care of, anything to do with insects, they're watching it all year long. And then at the end of the year, they are rewarded based off of the yield off of that farm. So we're giving them some skin in the game and letting them make production decisions with some support on the backside of it. But we can't watch every field with just 5 full-time people. So it's important that they have an opportunity to learn and grow as well.
Great. Thank you, Shelley. Anybody else want to weigh in? For the audience, I've got 2 more questions, but we've got a little over 10 minutes left, I think. So if you still have time, if you want to put in a question in the chat box. The next question is, Dan, you mentioned hemp. Could you give a little bit more information about that? You know, is Texas doing anything with other countries as far as exploring opportunities for trade or for increasing production or helping other countries begin growing hemp?
Clay, that's a great question. And yes, we are. As a matter of fact, as you well know, we're working with the Foreign Ag Service as of, you know, recently to look at those export markets, working with SUSTA and how we can identify those hemp markets. We really believe that that has an opportunity, and it's another tool in the toolbox for farmers, whether it's an industrial fiber hemp, whether it's a flour, whether it's the oil, even the grain side of things. So we're looking at that. What's been interesting is that as we've began this crop, which it became legal to grow here in the state of Texas this year, the number of producers that have gotten licensed and the number of people that are growing it is tremendous, and the interest is high. Most importantly is that we're seeing a large percentage of that growth actually in under glass or indoor grow greenhouses, whatever you want to see. So we see that as an opportunity to propagate new varieties, working with other countries and helping them develop their hemp programs, and or working with the industries that are already established in those programs to create varieties that they may need. So yes, we're very excited. A&M Research is very involved. Prairie View A&M Research is very involved. Texas Tech is very involved. So we're working with those. But as far as export and export markets, we're going to utilize some funding that through the Foreign Ag Service, through SUSTA, to begin to look at those markets and hopefully identify some places where we can work with you and your counterparts in the ag attaches on hemp. But we see it as a great opportunity and a great future, not only here in Texas, but around the world.
Thank you. And now the last question I have and there's still time if somebody wants to send in another one. But we'll start with you, Dan. How is climate change impacting Texas, and what's the ag community doing to adapt?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that we've dealt with cyclical climate change around the world for years and years and years. And as far as here in the state of Texas, you've heard some of the innovation that's going on, whether it's with regards to how we irrigate and how we take care of our water and our water resources and our soil health and those types of things. I think that there's no doubt that we face challenges out there. It's interesting. We hear about how, global warming, these types of things. I think Shelley mentioned that it's 80 degrees in September on the high plains, which generally isn't a normal thing. 40 was in the 40s there this morning. So we deal with the weather. We deal with the things that we're dealing with. Hopefully, though, we're also doing everything we can to help promote not only a healthy soil and a healthy environment, but as I mentioned, even in our production of petroleum and fuel products, we're the natural gas producer, which is your low emissions fuel, in addition to being a leader in wind power generation. So we're looking at a lot of different ways to be innovative, not only in how we power, but also how we feed and fuel the future.
Thank you very much, Dan. Would any of the other presenters like to weigh in on that issue? It's a tough one to end on, so I've got one more question that just came in. And this goes back to organic. And I noticed that Dale mentioned that his product is entirely non-GMO. I don't know if it's organic or not, but it's close, it sounds like. But the question is, what is the importance of the organic market in Texas, and is it growing? How are sustainable production methods being utilized, and what role does certification play?
You want me to answer that, or Dan? I can speak from our perspective. About 3% of the industry down here is organics. I'm a classic example of you can teach an old dog a new trick. I've got a grove that is a little too close to town, so we did convert it to an organic grove. It's challenging. It's got its challenges, pest and disease issues. Certification process through TDA, USDA is typically about 3 years. It can be a very good market, but it is a very challenging market, and it probably costs me more to grow organically than it does conventionally. The climate change thing, I usually try to stay out of those debates. I mean, we share water with Mexico down here is a great example of our challenges. They'll have a drought or we'll have a drought, and water sharing becomes an issue along the Rio Grande River. Cyclical, feast or famine. The last 2 Junes in a row, 2018 and 2019, we had our annual rainfall in 1 month. And so it's got its challenges. We do drip irrigation, micro sprinkler irrigation, different techniques like that to try to stretch our water and actually grow a better crop.
So, and with regards to the organic program, I know that Dale mentioned some of the challenges that they face in the production side of things. But I will say this, it has become an explosive market here in Texas for us. As I mentioned, we're one of the leading organic producers of milk. Many of our vegetables, newer vegetables, in addition to some of our fruits, and they were blueberries, things like that are growing. We also see the livestock sector as being a burgeoning market with regards to organic programs. It does cost more. It is a premium product at the grocery store shelf. But we also realize that there are those who want that product, who would like to see that product, who want to see a product that is produced in a certain way. And many of our producers have adjusted. One of the oldest organic cotton farms is not too far from Shelley. One of the oldest organic cotton farms in the nation is not too far from Shelley up there. So it's not just about the leafy greens and the juices and those things. It is also your meat. It's also your wool. It's also your cotton and the sorghum and those things that go into other products. So we know that marketplace is demanding that. Texas has stepped up to it. They've taken advantage of the infrastructure that's out there, but also taken advantage of the research and innovation. And then with us as partners, as a certifying agent out there, it has created an opportunity for some producers that for years was looking for something else out there to do. And the organic sector has opened up some doors for some folks.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. And I want to thank all of the presenters, Jean, John, Shelley, Tammy, Dale, and Michelle. It was very informative to me, and I consider myself an expert on Texas. So you helped me prepare for my next conversations with people up here in Washington that just don't quite understand, the aura and the importance of Texas. I think this was very informative. A couple of takeaways that I got from it is one, that Texas is enormous. You talked about the long distances. I had a friend in college. I went to school at A&M, and he said it was an 18-hour drive to Ohio, and 12 of that was in Texas. So it's just big. But it gives us a tremendous amount of diversity, a lot of opportunities. And I appreciated hearing about the resilience and how everybody has overcome problems. Shelley talked about expanding, how they're working to increase education through their Ketolo Gin. We talked about the organics. One thing about organics is that USDA and Texas Department of Agriculture, other organizations in Texas, we all firmly believe in consumer choice. And if consumers want organics, we want to make sure that they get the best, most economical organic product that they can. We talked about the importance of innovation, how, things have changed over the last 10 or 15 years, and how the question about the aging farmers, I think, is a very important one. Shelley said that they've got 5 full-time employees for their large operation. So without innovation, without new ideas, they wouldn't be able to keep up. And just soil health, sustainability, and things like that. Dan talked about the deep research roots that Texas has, always looking for ways to do things better, to improve the situation, protect the environment, and help the farmers continue doing what they do best, which is produce really safe, healthy, quality food. So I really appreciate this opportunity to showcase Texas. I hope everyone that was watching enjoyed it. And thank you for some very good questions. I think it went very well. With that, I'll turn it back over to our administrator. I think he has a few closing comments. So Ken, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Clay. And I think it's pretty obvious the passion Clay has for his home state of Texas, as well as all of the presenters. I'm probably one of those persons in Washington, D.C. Clay's referring to that'll be hearing more about Texas in the near future. Not that I don't already hear a lot about Texas, being a couple offices over from Clay. Well, we hope that this session has deepened the understanding of our friends in the embassies here in Washington, D.C. about Texas agriculture. We hope it'll also kick off a continued dialogue that you can have with the producers and the Texas Department of Agriculture. Please do make plans to join the Foreign Agricultural Attaché Tour to Texas in spring 2021. The Foreign Agricultural Service and the Texas Department of Agriculture will use feedback from this roundtable session to organize that spring tour. You can expect a tour announcement in late January or early February 2021 that will provide dates and more details about the upcoming tour to Texas. We remain hopeful that Foreign Ag Service and our sister agency, APHIS, will be able to hold the annual holiday reception at the Witten Patio in the Witten Building here at USDA in December. We hope those invitations will go out to you in November, so please be watching for those. But of course, that's dependent on the current state of the ability to meet in person and to socialize at an event like that reception. I'd like to thank Assistant Commissioner Dan Hunter, Jean Loney, and the Texas producers for investing their time to participate in this roundtable. Again, thanks to all the participants for joining, and I want to encourage you to take a few moments as you log off to complete a short survey. The survey will provide feedback about this event and an additional opportunity for you to provide input about the spring 2021 Foreign Agricultural Attaché Tour to the great state of Texas. Good afternoon, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.